a spider. You're ambling along the terrain, minding your own business. You just had a wonderful lunch when suddenly you're attacked from the air by a wasp. Oh man, a battle ensues. But alas, hello, I'm Rowena Starling, welcoming you to the Save Your Breath show, where we help parents eliminate the stress and aggravation of parenting, whether your child is 5 or 50. Today's show is an introduction to the fourth quarter of the year. The theme of this quarter is the mind. And Buddha has a quote that I think is particularly apropos for what we'll be looking for in the coming months. He says, "To enjoy good health, to bring true happiness to one's family, to bring peace to all, one must first discipline and control one's own mind. If a man can control his mind, he can find the way to enlightenment, and all wisdom and virtue will naturally come to him." Yes, that's what we want. We want all wisdom and virtue to come to us. That's what we're after in this show. So as I sat on the park bench and I watched this drama unfold with the spider and the wasp, I had quite a long time to sit there and watch it unfold because, they were going at it. It was a while. There was deception happening, all kinds of things. I had time to reflect on how we humans, because this is all programming, you see, how we humans are programmed in the same way, on the same elementary level as these reflections, we call it, I guess you call it reflections. It's a reflection when you're, what do you call that? When you're reflecting, you're responding, in any event, you know what I'm talking about. I watched them do that, and we have that same sort of automatic programming going on with, the chaos that comes about in the course of being a parent and in general in our lives and in work. The big difference here, obviously, is because as humans, we have the benefit of choosing our circumstances because of our mind. Our mind. We're elementary. We behave like elementary people all the time. You can just look in the news and see that. But we do have something that will allow us to elevate ourselves from that kind of noise and behavior if we allow ourselves to have it. So, in this quarter, what I want us to do is to have an appreciation for the relief that curiosity and presence can bring to us in the chaos, in the unexpected, unpleasant situations that arise from being parents. Curiosity is a function of the mind. Presence is a function of our divinity. It is that which is filtered through the brain to our minds, from the ether, from the great mind, and, interpreted by our brain, and we receive messages and so on. So I want us to be paying attention to that a little bit more because, the brain is receiving, yes, the messages from on high, and is also receiving the messages we get from our parents and from social consciousness. And what happens ultimately there is we end up with certain feelings that we sort of that are automatically programmed in us, and we're constantly responding to just out of reflex. The reflex. I think that was what the word was I was looking for before. So the idea is to gain an appreciation for that mind-brain connection and stop the noisy programming. Of course, we're not going to be able to do that completely, like 100%, but I think we need to be having a goal of eliminating as much as humanly possible for our individual selves in this endeavor. Now, I have to admit that, you know, my parenting suffered from a lack of the full understanding of this when my son was younger. In my failed marriage and in my son's young years, I suffered from this poor programming. All I had was what I got from my parents, right? That's part of that noise. And I had started on the path to, understanding better and enlightenment and all that juicy stuff, but I wasn't quite where I needed to be in order to be the best parent that I could have at the time. So, impatience, yelling, screaming, spanking, that was my MO. That was my default. Talking about parenting by default, that was my default. So my question to you is, do you have this issue? Would you like to get rid of these negative programs sooner rather than later? Through the work that I have studied and teach, I've developed a certain set of skills that have elevated my sense of mastery and confidence, both personally and professionally. It's a life hack, and it runs through the family system that I created for my clients. It is an aspect of this power that we have running through that whole system so that our lives are easier and we have more joy and fun in the process of doing a very challenging job. Would you like to have that? When we're talking about the mind and appreciating it, I have a quote here, just a statistic from onemind.org, and it tells us the global cost of mental illness is nearly $2.5 trillion in 2010, with a projected increase to over $6 trillion by 2030. I mean, let me ask you this. Do you take your mind for granted? I know it's kind of a strange question. My mind, let me see. Oh, wow. It's kind of just with you. We take it for granted. My mind is who I am. That's who we think we are, is our minds. Our minds are really a tool, something that we communicate with. And I mean, failing to properly appreciate our minds because we're over familiar with them. We think we know them. We think they're us, all that. I mean, that's ultimately an abuse of power. We have a certain power. And when we misuse it or ignore it, then what happens is we're at the effect of this misuse and ignorance. It's sort of like time. Our minds are like time. It's always in play, and it's always marching forward, and it's not waiting. It's not even thinking about anything except getting to the next microsecond, and it just goes on. There's a saying, the moving hand writes, and having writ moves on. I don't know who did that one. Was it Aristotle? I'm not sure. In any event, it's like our offspring. When they are children, we can give them attention or not give them attention. If we're not giving them attention, then they will act out to get the attention because they need attention. Negative attention is better than no attention. That'll do. Our minds are that way. Whatever's programmed in there, it just marches with that. And we're at the effect of what that is. As a mentor, I've spent over $130,000 and 40 years gaining the skills and precious experience that I have infused in my family system. I have listened to over 15,000 conversations, listened for 15,000 hours, actually. 15,000 conversations, I don't think I've done that, but I have done the timing. And the idea is that I helped creatively solve problems for people in this process. And these things were happening in all aspects of their lives, because, you know, there is no separation in what it is that we're doing here. You know, one part of our life flows into the other. And so ultimately, when there were problems, many times if they had children, these problems flowed into their parenting in one form or another. So here are a few keys to success that we engage, that I want to keep in front of our minds here. One is that knowledge, you have the knowledge. The idea is to take the knowledge you already have to a deeper level. I mean, what I teach is largely, you know, not something new, it's just not practiced. People know stuff, but they're not acting on what they know, and they're not thinking about, you know, beyond the surface of what they know. If they would just go a little bit deeper, perhaps, well, actually, they do find remedies and solutions that they hadn't considered before. The next thing is having mentors. Mentors are very important for us to move our program, our lives, our activities in life along faster than we would get there without the help of a mentor. I have mentors. And in the course of working with my mentors, guess who gets to benefit from what I gain there? My clients. And my clients, their children, get to benefit from the information that they're getting. So everything is sort of, we all need each other. It's a flow that we're engaged in, because I'm learning from my clients also. And then the other thing is having a network. Other parents who are on the same page, who get it, who understand that ultimately it's really up to us to make the changes to preserve the future for our children. It takes a village. Let's build it. I have a client couple, and this particular, I have a number of client couples, but this particular client couple came in convinced that their offspring were here to make them crazy and deprive them of the fun and joy and peace that they had when it was just the two of them. You know, they missed that time that they used to have together. I suspect that this couple really likes each other a lot. And I feel that their lives were devoured by parenthood. Mind you, their kids are now adults. So we had our consultation, and here are the intake notes, just so that you can get an idea. Now, mind you, these people love their children. And don't get me wrong. I mean, with everything that's going on with the whole mother, father, family thing, they're all with that. But now that children are grown, there's something sort of, you know, you tend to think about, well, what about me now? You know, and so this is from the notes in that first meeting. The father said, I appreciate what it was all about and what it was all for, but I feel like my life was a casualty at the end of it all. The mother said, I love my children, but I can't help but feel that there was so much that I missed and could have had for myself in my life. Do you feel that way? I mean, can you understand where they're coming from? They went on to describe their then relationship with their offspring, their now adult offspring. They said, "My son only comes around when he wants something, usually money. Our daughter is making the same mistakes in her marriage and child raising that we did and doesn't want to hear anything that we have to say about it. Whenever we offer a solution or a suggestion, she throws the mistakes we made in our face and huffs away, not realizing that she's mirroring our same mistakes all over again, and almost exactly." We had quite a number of sessions as we worked through some things here, and they began to realize that children are not, their children, our children, are not here to consume our lives in a negative way. In fact, they are here as literally extensions of ourselves. Take a note of this. We are ever expanding, like the universe. Now, and when I say that, I'm not talking about just a waistline. I mean that as entities, as these human bodies that we're here, we're more than just what you're seeing here. We are expanding in our intelligence, in our emotions, in our understanding. And children just accelerate the process. And they help us to become more serious about this process. They help us to do that. They bring the future in for us, but they learn from us how to be here because we've been here longer. And in the process, there is this mixing of feelings and intelligence and an expansion that's happening with our feelings and our understanding of who we are and what we strive to be, right? So, parenthood is a high calling to expand our greatness and recognize ourselves as the heroes that we are. So I'm working with this client, my couple, and they managed to shift their perspective, and they're currently happier than they have been in a very long time. You see that their minds had worked them, in that course of during those dependent years of raising their offspring. Their minds were working them like that wasp on the spider. If you're not paying attention, your mind, and especially if you're not calling into the great mind, the universe, God, however you want to express it. If you're not calling in and blending into that on a regular basis, then the mind is just in here, just working its program, whatever little negative program it can work on you to keep you stuck and make you feel miserable, which is what had happened to them, which happens to a lot of people. And they were just simply suffering from what I call parental PTSD. Okay, so I got an email from them here recently, and this is what they said. This is a testimonial to the work that I do with people. They said, "Working with you has helped us realize our lives have just begun. Our minds are freer than they've ever been. And we exercise a power and presence that was mostly overlooked. The best part is knowing that this fresh new us is the example our kids will see that is possible for themselves." Man, I love that. Ow! Does my heart good every time I get those juicy little comments like that. So, you see, just because our child is now an adult, Does that mean that we're no longer parents? Of course not. Once a parent, always a parent. May I help you be an example that teaches your kids who we are, that magnifies the free and present aspect of ourselves? Many parents feel that they need to slog through the day-to-day pressures and chaos of parenting, even after their child is an adult, because a lot of times they have trouble launching the adult, or the economy has beaten the adult back and they're having to come back home. So it doesn't just stop. Like I said, you're always a parent. And even if they're independent, there's something that's going on that's kind of, keeping us kind of wound up because we're worried about them being safe in the world, even though they're fully adult. Okay, well, that's who we are. We're parents. Many feel that there's no real relief in sight, that's just the way it is, that it is what it is. But it's really deeper than that. If they would just realize that their minds are programmed to set up this chaos and pressure, then they would take the steps necessary to free themselves and maintain their clear minds, also known as presence, and live the lives that they know they can. So, what beliefs are critical to repair your anxious heart and undo your parental PTSD? Well, are you able to say these things to yourself? There are a number of things that work for us being able to take care of ourselves. You find that you're down. If you have these 8 things sort of as your foundation, you'll be okay. You can work yourself out of it. Let's start with this. Ask yourself this. Can you say this? I know that I can gain the proper perspective. Right? I mean, in other words, are you able to step outside of yourself and see yourself, see your opinion objectively? If your perspective is off, are you able to step out of yourself, see that it's off, and then just pick up the proper perspective, gain the proper perspective, so that you can relieve yourself of the stress or the anxiety or whatever it is that's happening? Number 2, can you say that I actively engage in self-care, nutrition, exercise, proper sleep? Oh, and speaking of exercise, I can't let you go. This is too important for me not to repeat it. For instance, there are many different forms of exercise. Choose one. Just make sure you're expressing through those pores on a regular basis for an extended period of time, and very hot in the process. But ballroom dancing. Now, it was found that the only physical activity to offer protection against dementia was frequent dancing. Ha! Right? Here is a list. Reading provides a 35% reduced risk of dementia. Bicycling and swimming, 0%. Doing crossword puzzles at least 4 days a week, 47%. Playing golf, 0%. Dancing frequently, make a note of this, provides 76% reduction in the risk of having Alzheimer's. Wow. That was the greatest risk reduction of any activity studied, cognitive or physical. And this was a scientific study that went on for decades. And the TAP, the Alzheimer's Project, reported it for us. Yeah, so can you say that you're engaged and really taking care of yourself? See, we'd like to be here for a long time, so we need to pick up what it is that we need to do to be here for a long time, right? To, everything within our so-called power. Number 3, can you say that I know I can reactivate a certain aliveness that I've long forgotten? I call it our joie de vivre. Right? Are you someone that has, you identify with the age, the number of your age? For instance, if you are, 70 years old, are you thinking, well, I'm 70 years old, I'm supposed to act this way, I'm supposed to feel this way, that, and you're just going to continue to do that, slide down. It's not necessary. I, for one, am not going quietly into that dark night. All my friends know it. So I want you to come here and be with me on that. And how do we do that? How do we reactivate our aliveness? Well, we need to reactivate a certain level of hormonal flow, and we have that power. People are not thinking that they have that power, but we have that power. That hormonal flow. Hormones control and coordinate our body's internal metabolism, energy level, reproduction, we're not going that far, growth and development, and response to injury, stress, and environmental factors. And that's got that from the Johns Hopkins Medical Library. Right? I mean, I poured through their stacks for hours. No, I'm just kidding. I Googled it. In any event, good stuff, huh? Now, next, are you able to say that I am aware of the overlapping destinies of humans? In other words, if your offspring has grown up to be someone that is, not so good in the eyes of the law or humanity, you have to understand that people come here with a core purpose, a core program of their own. That, we can influence 80% of what parents do. Influence is who this person is going to be, their environment, how they're treated, what kind of education we get. What parents are doing a lot. That's 80%. That's a huge chunk. But there is this core person that's there, and you don't really know who they are until you find out who they are. Now, if they grow up to be president of the United States, then yes, we want to take credit for all of that. But you understand what I'm saying? We're aware of the overlapping destinies, the fact that they got you as a parent in the first place. That's no accident necessarily. And so you're able to you overlap in their lives and do that influence because you were meant to be there to do that, and you let it go. Once you are they're launched, then we get to see who is this person, right? So can you say that I know how to do powerful visualizations? And we're all with that now. Just make sure that you're practicing with your powerful visualizations. You know what they're for, don't you? Can you say that I know how to turn negative thinking into positive thinking? Can you say that I am an expert at mindfulness? And that mindfulness, again, I used to have this issue. I kind of still have this issue with the word mindful because, of course, we're thinking if your mind is full, it's full of noise, right? But that's not the mindful we're talking. We're talking about being full of that ether, that great mind, that universal mind, that full of the divinity of who you are. See, that mindfulness, the person that you are when you're quiet, where there are no thoughts there. You're just the pure essence. Are you an expert at your mindfulness, gaining your mindfulness, exercising your mindfulness, recognizing your mindfulness? Working with a mentor helps to shorten the time that it would take for you to do a comprehensive mind, body, spirit reboot for yourself and your family system, if you have one. A good experienced guide can help you assess what's going on. You know, we have blind spots. I mean, we have some peripheral vision. We have some stepping out and looking at our perspective. It's a good idea. But then it helps to have another pair of experienced eyes looking at a situation so that you can see a blind spot, shine some light on it, dissolve it. Many parents have read a lot of parenting books, and they've looked at the videos of the experts and whatnot, done workshops, but they still have certain family patterns, negative patterns, repeating over and over again. I was speaking with this 90-year-old grandmother just recently, and she pointed out how her great-grandkids, she says great-grandchildren who are having children, and she's seeing, you know, certain negative behaviors that are just being perpetuated, right? And as she was bringing her children up and engaging in this behavior herself, well, she couldn't see it because she was at the effect of what her parents had done to her, so she was just passing that along, right? Then she saw her kids with their kids, and to some degree they listened, other degrees they didn't. And now the kids are having kids, and she's just seeing certain negative behaviors perpetuating through generations. You know, 20/20 hindsight. Literally, she's watching this happen. Without professional guidance, we fill in the blanks with assumptions and untruths, and we begin to parent by default, which can lead to pain and frustration. And, you know, it gets tiring. Are you tired? I hope you are. I'm tired of that anyway. Would you like the opportunity to raise the level of your game, your parenting game, and gain insight to the issues that are in play? Would you like to spare yourself having to say the same things over and over again? Having to, well, actually not having to, but actually feeling anxiety over being your child's friend? Would you like to get a clear understanding of the money game so that you can have more of it flow in to you and through you to your family? Because as you are learning and gaining this, this information, some of us actually have offspring who will listen, and you get to pass it on. I have created a family system that addresses these issues. And there are 5 steps that I wanted to tell you about. That there are 5 steps in the system. Now, there are steps within the steps, but just for the sake of understanding what the thing is about. The first step is the calling. Parenting is a calling. And through meditation, the endless benefits of meditation, we're able to dig into that idea and absorb it and have our lives go a lot easier, have a little bit more fun. Well, maybe a lot more fun over time, but we want to start with a little bit and build it. We don't want to hurt ourselves. Then the second step is raising the dough. You know, the money, having an understanding of that inner game of how money works. The third is respect. Gaining respect and giving respect. The fourth step in the system is discipline. And it's not just about the disciplining of the children. It's about having discipline in ourselves about how we go about and sticking with what it is we said we do in the name of discipline. And then the fifth step in the family system is the system itself, your custom family system and map. Well, may I hold your hand through this? If you find that you want to have help with your issues in parenting, do the parenting assessment at SaveYourBreath101.com/parenting-assessment. Submit it and receive a complimentary parenting breakthrough session with me. This is a $250 value for free. You'll be glad you did. Well, I thank you very much for watching and listening. And I look forward to seeing you here again next time on the Save Your Breath Show.